Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto and Sakura become a joint team leader and fall in love with each other, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Prologue. Iruka sensei stood among the new genin of Konoha. They had just graduated. Standing along with him was 4 sets of teams. Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Haruno was one team. Along with Kiba and Hinata as another team, Shikamaru and Ino was another team, and the last team consisted of Shino and Rock Lee. Alright class, these will be your team leaders for the rest of your time as a ninja. He said, introducing them. Now as I call your names, please introduce yourself and form your new team. Hey Sakura, why exactly do we have to be babysitters for these brats? Naruto asked as he leaned over to whisper in her ear. I mean, aren't Jonin like Kakashi-sensei supposed to take care of the genin? Sakura rolled her eyes and leaned over. Lady Tsunade told you already. We're having a shortage of Jonin. All of the other Jonin are on missions, so they're assigning lower-ranking ninjas to work as team leaders. Naruto crossed his arm, pouting. I don't get it why I was assigned this position. I'm only a genin. Sakura shook her head. Lady Tsunade obviously saw your potential as a team leader and decided to bend the rules to let you join with all the Chunin. Naruto seemed to brighten. Well, maybe this won't be as bad as I made it out to be. At least Granny Tsunade put us on a team. He said, nudging her with his elbow, suggestively. This is serious business, Naruto. Sakura said, sighing. You can't be fooling around like usual. Mika, Kasumi, and Kenji, you are assigned to Naruto-sensei and Sakura-sensei's team. Iruka said, smiling proudly over at Naruto. Naruto-sensei, I think I like the sound of that. Naruto said, smiling. What do you think? Sakura asked Naruto as the 3 genin approached them. They're really green, but we can show them the ropes. He said, smiling widely. Okay guys, Naruto said. Why don't we all introduce ourselves? Naruto and Sakura stared down at their 3 students. Nostalgia flowed through their minds as Sakura and Naruto exchanged glances. The 5 Hokages were carved in the mountain behind them. This was the exact same spot where they had met their sensei. Kakashi-sensei had guided them since they were young. Just like they would guide these young, inexperienced ninja. Okay, I'll start. A boy with red hair and bright green eyes exclaimed. My name is Penshu Kenji. I'm from the Penshu clan and I want to be the leader of the Anbu. Naruto nodded. Nice, and you? He asked the tiny girl in the corner. She was obviously very shy. My name is Panoda Kasumi. I would like to be a top medical ninja, she muttered. Kasumi. Naruto snapped. Don't say you'd like to be, say you will. The girl leaned back, farther into the corner. Huh. Naruto looked at her confusingly. Geez Naruto, settle down. Sakura said, walking over to the girl who was now hiding her face. Sakura gently rested her hand on Kasumi's shoulder. You can be whatever you want to be. I want to be a medical ninja. Like you, sensei. Sakura smiled warmly at the girl. I'm flattered. I'll be sure to talk to Lady Tsunade about you. The girl flashed a toothy grin. What about you? Naruto asked the last boy. He looked somewhat older than the other ninja genin. My name is Sansu Mika. I want to teach at the Ninja Academy. Sakura leaned back against the railing of the rooftop. Such ambition. She murmured to herself. I know. Naruto agreed. Naruto-sensei, when do we have our first mission? Kenji asked. Naruto looked at Sakura for help. He stuttered. Sakura smiled warmly at Kenji. Lady Tsunade actually assigned Naruto and I to a mission in the Hidden Sound Village, but we're taking you 3 with us. It's an A-rank mission. An A-rank mission, the 3 young genin said in unison. Naruto looked over at Sakura in disbelief. We're going undercover for this mission, so from here on out Naruto and I are your parents, and you are our children. What? Granny Tsunade ordered that? Naruto asked. Sakura sighed. Yes Naruto. So, Naruto-sensei and you are dating? Kenji asked, skeptically staring back and forth between his two team leaders. Naruto blushed. Sakura seemed annoyed yet kept her patient exterior. Actually, she said, reaching into her pocket and pulling out a pair of matching silver rings. We're married. She ignored the gasp of surprise from Naruto and slipped on her ring and threw Naruto his ring. Geez, Sakura, this is all kind of sudden. Why do we have to be married? Naruto asked, then turned an even brighter red when Sakura grabbed his right hand, took the ring he had just placed onto it, off of it, and placed it on his left hand. In the Hidden Sound Village, the ninja are on constant surveillance and there's a road block at every gate. They're not letting any foreign shinobi through. That's why we're going undercover. Naruto stared dumbly at his palm, still blushing. It's only for the mission, Naruto. Sakura said, mistaking his excitement for contempt. Naruto nodded and turned to his team. Do you all have your ninja tools? The three nodded and Naruto glanced at Sakura, who was removing her headband. Her pink hair flowed in the wind. The sun was setting behind the mountains, casting an orange silhouette around Sakura's face. Sakura. Naruto drifted off into a dreaming state. She was so beautiful. I'm sorry, Naruto, he heard her say. I realize the awkward position I'm putting you in, but Lady Tsunade gave us our orders. Sakura. I understand, don't worry about a thing, I'll be the best husband you've ever seen. He assured her. Sakura smiled warmly. Thanks, Naruto. Well, Team Sakura, let's get ready to leave. Naruto said. Sakura froze in silence. Lady Tsunade had told Naruto and her that they could fight over the name of the group. Let's call it Team Uzumaki. Sakura offered. Since we as of now have the same name. Naruto stared at Sakura before smiling. Okay, deal. Team Uzumaki it is. Team Uzumaki headed for the only path that led out of Konoha. This is the first time I've ever been out of the village. Kasumi said as they continued down the path that led to the Hidden Sound Village. Okay guys, take off your headband. From here on out you're not a ninja anymore. Naruto and I are not your senseis, we're your parents. She said, walking behind Naruto and helping him untie his headband. Don't forget that we're married now too, Naruto. So mom, what exactly are we going to tell them if they ask our names? Kenji asked. Your names are Kenji, Mika, and Kasumi Uzumaki. You're traveling with your parents Naruto Uzumaki and Sakura Uzumaki. She felt her heart bang in her chest as she repeated her new name in her head. Sakura Uzumaki. Naruto had fallen silent too. They continued down the path as the sun set behind the horizon and darkness surrounded them. Naruto, what do you think about stopping here for the night? Sakura asked after hours of silence. We still have plenty of energy left, he said. Of course we do, but look at them. Sakura said, pointing at the three young ninjas. They were covered in dirt and sweat, they were all breathing heavily. We need to rest, they're exhausted. Sakura said as she stopped and pulled the pop-up shelter out of her bag. Okay kids, Sakura said, taking on a motherly tone. You can all sleep in this shelter. Don't come out for any reason. Your father and I will deal with any trouble that might befall us, so just concentrate on sleeping. They nodded. Kenji gave her a skeptical look. Like he was going to be stuck in that tent if ninjas attacked their camp. I'll be right back, Sakura said, pulling a spool of wire out of her bag. I'm going to set scouting wire. Naruto nodded and began to gather wood. By the time she returned from setting traps all around the camp, he had started a small fire. You can sleep if you want, Naruto. Sakura said. You need to sleep too. She climbed to the top of a tree and relaxed in the branches. Someone has to keep watch. In one jump he sat beside her on one of the highest branches. Okay, I'll take first shift then. Sakura stared at Naruto for what seemed like forever. Are you sure? Sure, I'm sure, he said, giving her a thumbs up. Even team leaders have to recharge. She smiled and nodded, propping herself up against the tree. She was so tired, she could feel her brain fogging. Thank you, Naruto, she said, just before falling into a deep sleep. Naruto watched Sakura closely as she slept beside him. Her breathing became softer and more rhythmic. He searched around for any kind of danger, but the place seemed quiet. Sakura woke up when the sun shined into her eyes. She stood up straight. Naruto. She yelled loudly when she realized it was morning. Naruto. I'm right here, he answered, and she turned to see him sitting on a branch beneath her. Did you sleep at all? She asked, rubbing her eyes. I took a few short naps every now and then, so now I'm well refreshed. Sakura nodded and let it down and let her feet dangle off the branch. We need to get going. If we hurry, we'll make it to the hidden sound village by nightfall. Naruto nodded and Sakura jumped off the tree and opened the tent. Morning everyone, get yourself up and ready to leave in a few minutes. Soon they were traveling through a heavy wooded area on their way to the hidden sound village. Clouds loomed over the area, darkening the woods. It looked very gloomy. Sakura, Naruto whispered as they walked side by side. What's the plan once we get to the village? First we set up residence and then we have to start searching for Orochimaru's hideout. She explained as Kenji, Kasumi, and Mika walked ahead. We have to keep an eye out for ninja now, we're far from Konoha and anyone could attack. Naruto said and Sakura nodded, grabbing her kunai. Don't make it obvious, Naruto said, grabbing Sakura's wrist. If they see you have a kunai they'll know you're a ninja. He whispered and she nodded. Sorry. Their genin team walked ahead of them talking amongst themselves. I don't know about you sis, but I think there is something going on between mom and dad. Kenji told Kasumi as they watched and giggled. It's obvious they have strong feelings for each other. Mika said, nodding in agreement. They've known each other since they were really young, they went to the academy together, they've been on the same team and they're both great ninja, it's understandable that they'd be close. Kasumi commented. It's different to be close and to be willing to die for the other person. Mika said, his eyes closed in thought. I just think it's disrespectful to talk about our senseis that way. Kasumi said. Kenji rolled his eyes. Oh please, how experienced are they anyways? Mika sighed, shaking his head. Sakura sensei is the leading medical ninja in all of Konoha and Naruto sensei has the Kyuubi sealed inside of him. Kenji and Kasumi's jaw dropped. The nine-tailed fox is inside of Naruto sensei? Kasumi asked, shaking a bit in fear. Oh please, Kasumi, Kenji said, rolling his eyes. Look at Naruto sensei, does he look like the type to suddenly go mad and attack us all? Kasumi turned around skeptically and glanced over at her sensei. He and Sakura sensei were laughing at something, joy lit up on his face. No, but, then shut up about it. Kenji said, and Mika frowned. Leave Kasumi alone, the nine-tailed fox almost destroyed our village, she has a legitimate reason to fear him. Mika said, but then turned to Kasumi. Don't worry about Naruto sensei, Lady Tsunade wouldn't have assigned him as a team leader if there was any danger from having him around. Kasumi nodded. Sakura suddenly stopped in mid-sentence. I can sense them too, Naruto said, looking around. 1, 2, 3, people, they're definitely ninja. Everyone, stop, Sakura yelled, running up to them and putting her arms protectively around all of them. Get behind me. 3 ninjas suddenly appeared in front of Sakura and the genin, inches from her face. She stood in front of the children protectively. You have passed beyond the hidden sound village's border. State your purpose on our lands. The leader said, gruffly grabbing Sakura by the collar of her shirt. Naruto began to step forward, but Mika stopped him with his hand. We are traveling from the Earth Village. We plan to set up residence in your town. We mean no harm, we are only civilians. The enemy ninja exchanged glances. Is that so? The leader asked as he circled around Sakura. Naruto moved in front of her, shielding her from him. State your name, traveler. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, you're threatening my wife. Sakura's eyes widened at how calm Naruto was sounding, she on the other hand, was trembling. How old is she? I thought she was just a girl. The leader murmured, turning to look at Sakura, who was behind Naruto. I'm 25. She lied, she was really only 16. You sure have big, childlike eyes for 25. He said skeptically. Sakura silenced. Naruto stepped in. If you have any problems, take them to me, leave her out of it. The Sound Village ninja exchanged glances. We're going to let you pass, just know that we'll be watching you. They left in a cloud of smoke. Sakura came up from behind Naruto and wrapped her arms around his torso, resting her head on his back. Naruto stood frozen and silent. I think mom and dad are seriously shook up. Kenji murmured, not even noticing that Kasumi and Mika were shook up as well. Sakura's breathing was erratic. Naruto turned and took her into his arms, allowing her to have the comfort of his chest. That was close, Naruto said after a few minutes had passed. Sakura nodded and turned around to her team. Is everyone alright? Kasumi and Mika weakly nodded. Kenji huffed. I don't get it, why are we all so scared? Kasumi roughly elbowed him. We need to go. Sakura said, picking up her shoulder bag. Sakura and Naruto were assigned a hotel room in an old rundown motel in the center of the village. Kasumi had been assigned with Mika and Kenji for protection purposes. Many dangerous men had eyed both of the kunoichi as they checked in. One actually came over and had tried to hit on Sakura. Naruto had put a stop to it. Okay, everyone, listen up. You're free to do whatever you want, but there's just one rule: you don't split up, you always stay together. Sakura had ordered. Naruto had taken Mika and Kenji aside. Listen, in most circumstances your teammate can hold her own, so don't take this as me saying she's weak, but I want you both to watch out for her. Don't worry, sensei, we won't let Orochimaru get her. Kenji said. Naruto shook his head. Kenji, I think Naruto-sensei wasn't talking about protecting her from Orochimaru, Mika said. Just keep an eye out for her, okay? Naruto asked, staring mainly at Mika. Yes, sensei. After they had ran down the hall and out the exit, Naruto turned to Sakura, who was leaning against the wall. Now what? You want to see what they have for food around these parts? He asked. Sakura nodded and they walked out the same way their genin team had gone. They went to a local ramen shop and ate a noisy dinner. A ruckus had sprung up outside. I guess we should get out of here, Naruto said, taking Sakura's hand, almost out of impulse. Was he still putting on an act? Be careful, she said, tightening her grip on his hand. But as soon as they walked out the door, they were pulled into a brawl that was in the middle of the village. Hey! Naruto yelled as Sakura was ripped away from him. He felt the hard punch of a drunken villager. It knocked him backwards. We don't take kindly to strangers here, mister. A man said, punching Naruto again. Naruto! Sakura yelled, pushing towards him. She yearned to use her ninjutsu and take out all of these villagers in one swing, but she couldn't, it was too risky. She finally reached him and jumped in front of the drunken villager who had attacked Naruto. He was now swinging his arm around like a maniac. Sakura, watch out, Naruto said, grabbing her from around the waist and pulling her down into his arms on the ground. She narrowly missed being hit by the man. We need to get out of here, now, she said. He gritted his teeth. I know, but I can't even see a hole out. He covered her head with his arms as a bottle of alcohol came whizzing by their heads. Suddenly someone wrapped his arms around Sakura's waist, dragging her through the dirt and to her feet. Naruto, Sakura said, reaching desperately for him. In that moment the rest of the villagers jumped on top of him, swinging punches. Naruto. It took 5 men to pin Sakura to the outside wall of the restaurant they had just eaten in. Her chakra was flowing through her body as she fought desperately to be freed. She couldn't even hear Naruto anymore. You're feisty, a man said, coming up to her. He had a pierced nose, many tattoos, and scars all over his body. I like my women feisty. I'm not your woman, she yelled desperately, flashing him her wedding band. That don't mean shit to me, I'm not looking for you to be willing, he said with a smirk. Sakura's eyes widened as she fought even harder. She was now being pinned down by 10 men. Wait, she said, as she fought more. Wait, let's talk about this. The man laughed. That's the thing, lady. I was never good with talking, I'm a lot better with touching. Sakura closed her eyes shut as she felt his hand on her chest. I'll drink to that, he said, laughing heartily. You get your filthy hands off of her. Naruto screamed from behind him. He had transformed into the Kyuubi. He was angrier than she had ever seen him. The men, out of livid fear, stepped away from Sakura. She dropped to the floor. Naruto centered his attention on the man in front of her, the man who had touched her. He reared back to end his life in one lethal swing. Naruto, don't, Sakura said, grabbing his arm. Naruto turned his anger towards her, until he saw her worried face. Naruto's eyes turned back to a calm blue almost instantly, but he still had an angry snarl on his face when he looked at the man. Count your blessings, he said, taking Sakura's hand and walking off. Naruto and Sakura sat down on the bed of the hotel room where they were staying. Sakura had given Naruto an ice pack to put over his swollen face, and she was currently bandaging his bruised knuckles and repaired his bruised torso. He sat shirtless in front of her and watched her as she tended to his bruised midriff. Her mind soared as her hand rested on his flat muscular stomach. The chakra seal on his stomach was fading. That was stupid, you could have been found out. She scolded as she made him lay back. She took a cold washcloth and dabbed at his swollen cheek, black eyes, and bloody lip. You could have been raped. She froze with the washcloth at his cheek. I had it under control. They had 10 men pinning you down, he argued. She pressed roughly on the swollen part of his eye. Ow, he said, grasping her hand. Don't take your anger out on my eye. She froze in that very spot. You're right, they would have raped me. Naruto sat up and looked Sakura in the eyes. Realization had hit her hard. He could tell she was fighting off tears. Sakura, Naruto whispered, taking her into his arms. I wouldn't have let that happen. She nodded and stood. She had to get away from Naruto. She needed to be independent. She was the team leader. She couldn't break down in front of him. Sakura sat on the hotel's rickety desk chair and pulled out an robotic pigeon and a tiny notepad. What are you doing? I'm writing a letter to Lady Tsunade informing her that we have arrived and set up residence in the Hidden Sound Village. Sakura explained, scribbling down a note and sticking it in the tube tied to the mechanical pigeon's leg. She opened the window and sent it flying off in the distance. It's getting late, Sakura said, closing the door to block out the screams and laughter from the city. Naruto laid back against the pillow. Are you sleeping with me? Sakura blushed. What? Naruto looked around the room. There's only one bed. Yeah, Sakura said, still bright red. If that's okay with you. Naruto smiled widely. I don't mind, he said, snuggling under the covers. Sakura smiled softly. She took a deep breath and climbed into bed, keeping a safe distance between them. She felt Naruto shift beside her and took a deep breath. She fell asleep exhaustedly. Sakura woke up the next morning feeling warm and comfortable. She felt as if she was cradled in a heavy blanket. She almost wished she could cuddle farther into the warmth and fall back to sleep. A moan woke her up. She turned into Naruto's shoulder. Naruto's shoulder. Her eyes opened widely as she carefully turned to where she faced him. His eyes were closed and he was in deep sleep. She looked at all of the space between the edge of her side of the bed and where she was now and realized that she must have been the one who had snuggled into his arms. This realization made her cheeks warm in embarrassment. Naruto, it's time to wake up, Sakura said, elbowing him. He woke up and snuggled into her hair, pulling her tighter against him. He mumbled something, still half asleep. Naruto, Sakura called again, shoving him. Sakura. His blue eyes opened. It's morning, she said, pulling out of his arms and running into the bathroom. Soon he heard the water running. Crap, what just happened? Naruto thought. The muscles in his arm began to twitch. She had slept with him overnight, she had slept in his arms. Naruto sat back and took a deep breath. It had taken him 2.5 years to fall out of love with Sakura, and now she was sharing his bed with him, and it was as if every feeling he had ever felt for her had returned in an instant. He told Jiraiya that he'd never get over the pink-haired Kunoichi. Of course the pervy sage didn't know anything about deep powerful love. All he knew was how to satiate his own desires. He would have never considered dying for one of the many women that he made company with. But Naruto would give anything for Sakura. Even his own life. Sakura came out of the bathroom fully dressed. She began to attach all of her ninja tools to her belt. Naruto, I'm going to wake up the genin, you should get ready too. Sakura said, walking out the door. Sakura, Naruto, and the three young ninjas traveled around to scout out Orochimaru's hideout. Be careful everyone, there could be traps set anywhere. Sakura whispered. It's a good thing we're using these disguises. Mika said, laughing at Kasumi and Kenji. Kenji was underneath Kasumi, with the tiny girl sitting on his shoulders. They were covered in a pair of old farmer overalls and an extra-large plaid shirt. Mika and Sakura were dressed in similar clothing as young farm boys, and Naruto was dressed as an adult farmer. He watched Sakura as her eyes darted back and forth. Mika, stop! She yelled suddenly, running up to him. Mika stepped flat on a hidden wire. A large iron cell dropped around Sakura and Mika, capturing them. Sakura! Naruto yelled, and Sakura reached out her hand to give Naruto her headband. Run, Naruto! She yelled. They'll be ninja coming soon. Naruto shut his eyes tight. I'm not leaving you, he said, reaching for the bars. When he did, an electric jolt was sent through the bars, shocking both him and Sakura. Naruto, she said, as she fell to her knees. Here, take our headbands. She dropped hers to the dirt exhaustedly and gestured for Mika to give him his too. Her breathing became shallow and she turned a pale white. You have to go, now, she said, desperately grabbing his hand, careful not to knock him into the electrified bars. They'll find you all, and find out you're ninjas, they'll kill you. I can't leave you, he said, his head snapping up to glance around the forest. They're coming, she said, her ghostly eyes tearing up. Go now, she yelled. Sakura, he said, grasping her hand tighter. Remember the mission, she said, and after a moment of hesitation, he pulled back. We'll be back for you both. I promise, Naruto said, just before he disappeared. Well, who are you two and what are you doing around here? A sound ninja asked Sakura. He was twice her size, with long black hair and an evil glare in his eyes. He was very scary looking. We're just exploring, she said in a masculine voice. How old are you, boy? The ninja asked Sakura. I'm 16, she said. My brother is only 12, please let us go. She begged. No, I can't do that, I have to take you to see Lord Orochimaru. Lord Orochimaru. Sakura stuttered. Please sir, let us go. She begged more desperately. She wanted to find Orochimaru, but she didn't know how she could do anything without the strength of Naruto beside her. Snakes suddenly slithered out of the arms of the leading ninja. They wound themselves tightly around Sakura's body, locking her arms behind her back. Mika stood beside her. Moth, brother, what should I do? He asked. Don't do anything, Mika, she said, furiously struggling to get free. Knock her out, Hanta, the ninja told the snake. Sakura's eyes widened as she felt the sting of the snake biting her arm. Just enough poison to put you to sleep, the ninja said. Sakura fought with everything she could to stay awake. In the corner of her eyes, before she passed out, she saw a bright orange flash. No, Naruto, she said as she fell backwards, her hat flipping off as she fell into blackness. A woman, the ninja exclaimed in shock. Hey, wait a minute. Suddenly he felt a heavy weight pinning him down. Naruto had landed on top of him. A kunai pressed tightly against his neck. Let them go, now. A pause sent chills through Naruto's spine. Do it now. The ninja made a hand sign. Lightning prison, release. In one lethal move Naruto severed the ninja's carotid artery. Kenji and Kasumi gasped. He would have reported us. I had to kill him. Naruto explained, sitting up and crawling over to Sakura, who now laid in the dirt, the snake still wrapped around her. She was losing color due to the snake tightening its hold on Sakura. Naruto sliced open the snake with his kunai, murky juices sputtered out, covering him as he desperately tried to slice her free. Sakura felt the wind rushing through her hair. Her eyes were shut and she was feeling strangely comfortable and safe. Will Sakura-sensei be alright? She heard Kasumi's girlish voice ask. Sakura was surprised that even though it was so cold outside, she felt so warm. What was going on? I don't know, Kasumi. She heard Naruto say. She could feel the vibrations of his deep voice by her ear. He sounded very worried. She slowly opened her eyes. She was nestled in Naruto's arms as they flew through the forest tree by tree. She looked up into his eyes and felt a warm tear drop on her cheek. He was crying softly. Sakura reached up and cupped his cheek. Don't cry, she said, her voice raspy. Sakura? He asked, stopping at the next tree branch. Only Kasumi was with him. Kasumi, go catch up with Mika and Kenji, we'll be right behind you. Naruto ordered. Yes, sensei, she said, following the same path she was heading in before. Sakura, Naruto said, sitting on the tree branch where they had stopped. She rested against his chest. I can barely move, she told him. Don't try, that poison is still in your bloodstream, he said, supporting her with his arms. Did you kill him? Sakura asked. Naruto nodded. Good, she said, leaning against his arm. Naruto stood up and slowed his pace as he headed back towards the hotel. You did a good job, Naruto, Sakura said, her hand resting on his flat stomach. You're a better ninja than I am. Naruto looked down at her. The sound ninja was going to take me to see Orochimaru. I could have been closer to Sasuke. But I can't face them. Not without you. I'm still so weak, she said, resting her head in the crook of his arm. You're not weak, Sakura. You're a Chunin, and you're our team leader. You're an amazing medical ninja too. Thanks, Naruto, she said, smiling. You're controlled by your mind. I'm still controlled by my impulse. That's why I'm a Genin and you're a Chunin. You've gotten better though. He grinned. Not when it came to you and Mika getting captured. She sighed and closed her eyes. I'm just glad you did. Naruto looked down to see Sakura's eyes closed. Her breathing had finally leveled out. She was asleep. Sakura's eyes opened in darkness. She felt cushioned but she had no idea where she was. Naruto. No answer. Naruto. She called louder. Still no answer. Her heart began pounding. Where was she? Naruto. She yelled and suddenly a door opened and Naruto's silhouette appeared in the doorway. He ran to her side. Are you okay? He asked and she nodded. I just didn't know where I was, she said, feeling foolish. That's okay, I'm going to bed anyways, he said, pulling off his orange jacket, leaving just his black t-shirt. He climbed in beside her. I'm sorry, she said. For what? For needing you for everything. I swear tomorrow I'll be stronger. He smiled and opened his arms. Come here, he said, softly. She didn't even blink as she scooted into his embrace. She needed him more than anything at that very moment. There's nothing wrong with needing me, Sakura, he said, planting a soft kiss on the top of her forehead. She was shocked, but also she felt comforted. You're the first person who ever has, he said. She grabbed a handful of his t-shirt as she snuggled into his chest. I've always needed you, she admitted, as her eyes closed slowly. She fell asleep there, as they laid together. Her grip finally loosening on his shirt. Sakura woke up in Naruto's arms for the second night in a row. Except this time she had done it consciously. He had kissed her forehead. He had made sure she was safe. He had put her own safety and happiness over his own. Just like he always had. Even when they were little. There was a heavy pounding on the door. Sakura shook Naruto until he woke up. There's someone at the door, she said, standing. Wait, Naruto said, getting up and pushing her behind the door. She grabbed a kunai that Naruto had set on the table. As soon as Naruto opened the door, a huge animal knocked him down. Naruto! Sakura yelled. Ah! Naruto yelled. Akamaru! Get off! Sakura gasped and looked in the doorway. Shino, Hinata, Lee, and Kiba stood in the hall smiling. Hinata was blushing. When they saw Sakura wrapped up in a robe with a kunai in her hand, they looked back at Naruto, who was pushing Akamaru off of him. Kiba laughed. Lee pouted, Hinata covered her mouth, and Shino crossed his arms. Geez, Naruto, Kiba said, calling Akamaru back to his side. We didn't realize we had woken you two lovebirds up. Both Naruto and Sakura turned a bright red. Get in here, Sakura said, grabbing Kiba by his collar. If someone sees you, then our cover will be blown. They all came in and Naruto shut the door. Our genin teams are with yours right now, Shino explained. Lady Hokage sent us in as reinforcements since you found Orochimaru's hideout. Well, we didn't exactly find it, Naruto explained. We had a problem yesterday. One of the sound ninjas attacked us and poisoned Sakura. Lee's eyes widened. I am sorry I was not here to protect you, Sakura. If I would have known, I would have rushed here, he said, grabbing her hand and flashing her a glittering smile. Hey bushy brow, I took care of things just fine without your help, thanks, Naruto said, crossing his arms, annoyed. Sakura and Naruto began to attach their gear to their belts. I don't see why Grandma Tsunade decided we needed reinforcements in the first place, Naruto muttered. Well, it might be that Lady Hokage figured a team with a genin team leader couldn't handle an A- rank mission, Shino commented. Both Sakura and Naruto glared at him. If anyone's incompetent, it's M. Don't say it's Sakura, Shino might have a point. I mean, I've been a genin for a while now, maybe I should ask Grandma Tsunade to hold off on making me a sensei just yet, Naruto said, throwing his backpack over his shoulder. Sakura sent Shino a death glare. Shino merely shrugged. She grabbed Naruto by his shirt and roughly dragged him into the bathroom, the only other room in the hotel room. What? Stop this now, she ordered. Stop what? Stop second-guessing yourself. You're a stronger and better ninja than any of them out there. Only because I'm a Jinchuriki. No, she yelled, cupping his face in her hands. Your skill is beyond the nine-tailed fox, Naruto. You try harder than any of them outside. It doesn't matter if you stay a genin for the rest of your life. You're the strongest on this team, and I'm not losing this team's backbone because Shino has to open his big trap, she said, taking a deep breath afterwards. He stared at their feet before looking at her in the eyes. Tsunade assigned you to my team because we work well together. But only when we're on even terms. So stop all the, you're a chunin and I'm a genin, crap, because if anyone's incompetent, it's me, she said. Naruto wrapped his hands around her forearms that still rested on his shoulders where she was still cupping his cheeks. She ran her thumbs along the whisker lines on his face. Sakura, Naruto whispered. Don't say that, it's true. He pulled her in for a hug. Now who's second-guessing themselves? He asked. But, shish, Naruto said, placing his finger over her lips. You're stronger than you know. Sakura couldn't help but let a tear spill over her eyes and down her cheek. She laughed as he brushed it away. They stared into each other's eyes. Sakura got lost in the deep blue hues of his eyes. She didn't know why, but she felt herself rising onto her toes. Sakura, Naruto whispered, leaning down, not losing eye contact with her emerald eyes. Naruto, she muttered. Their lips met and a sudden spark shot through Sakura. She was kissing Naruto. She reached up and touched his shoulder, feeling his bicep flex under her hand. She tried to memorize every sensation she was feeling. A flood of memories came back through her mind's eye at that moment, and she felt a grin appear on her face. What's so funny? Naruto asked, separating their lips just enough to stare into her eyes playfully. I don't know, she said, resting her head underneath his chin. He kissed her forehead. She looked back into his eyes and smiled. They're still out there, He leaned down and kissed her on the lips again. Well, I guess we should go then, he said. She leaned up and kissed him again. Yeah, I think we'd better. She followed him out and tried her best to hide what had happened. Kiba and Hinata were conversing in one corner of the room while Shino and Lee were talking in the other. Wow, what took you guys so long? Kiba asked. Naruto scratched his head and Sakura turned a bright red. After Sakura took a moment to collect herself, she spoke. We need to discuss the future plan. I say we break off into teams and search for any clues to Orochimaru's hideout and then meet up tonight. I agree with Sakura, Lee said, coming to stand close beside her. Naruto pouted in the corner as Sakura smiled brightly at Lee. I dunno, Pinky, Kiba said, flipping his hood down. Don't you think it will be kind of suspicious looking if we're all around the Sound Village? Naruto nodded. I think we need to split up into 6 teams instead of just 3. No, we need to stay together. If trouble arises, it will be a lot easier to take care of if we have 2 Chunin, or well, in Team Uzumaki's case, a Chunin and a Genin. Shino said, and Sakura shot him a hateful look. I agree with Naruto, Sakura said, standing beside him. I do too, Kiba said, putting his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Me too, Lee exclaimed, standing beside Sakura. Hinata came and stood beside Kiba, giving a short shy nod. Shino shrugged. Well, I guess I'm outvoted. Okay, so we'll break up our team in half, Naruto said, walking out of the hotel room and into the Genin's room, which was across the room. The room was filled with young ninjas, 9 to be exact. Team Uzumaki, center around me, Naruto ordered, and they all obediently followed him. Naruto, Mika is the oldest and the most experienced on our team. Since we have to break them up, I think we should keep Kasumi and Kenji on a team, Sakura whispered, and Naruto nodded. Okay, Mika, you're coming with me, Naruto said. And Kasumi and Kenji, you go with Sakura-chan. They all obeyed. Naruto threw Sakura a walkie-talkie earphone. You call me if you need me, Naruto told her as he inconspicuously clasped her hands. She looked into his eyes and nodded. Let's go. Naruto and Mika set out towards the south side of the village. Sakura, Kasumi, and Kenji set out southwest. The other teams went in their respective directions. Sakura, do you hear me? Naruto called on the radio when they were out of eyesight of each other. I hear you. Good. Keep in touch. Sakura's team and Naruto's team searched all afternoon for any sign of Orochimaru's hideout. It wasn't until it was dark that Sakura's team had run into trouble. Who are you? Sakura asked, blocking the thrown kunai. I am an elite sound ninja sent to capture the hidden leaf kunoichi that had escaped capture. I also know that the person that I'm searching for is you. He obviously knew what he was doing. Sakura pressed the button on her earpiece. Naruto, we've got trouble. I need you to get here as soon as possible. It's an emergency. She heard Naruto's heavy breathing on the other end. We've kind of got into some trouble too, are you alright? Yes, I can take him. She heard an explosion. Naruto, I'm okay, he said, out of breath. Keep in touch. Sakura was now not only worried about her own life and that of her team, but for Naruto's well-being as well. Sakura didn't even realize it until she was knocked flat that the ninja had attacked her. She was caught off guard and couldn't help but fall into the trap he had set. He had attached her to a tree by chakra strings. Okay, Naruto called on the radio. We took care of this guy. Do you still need my help? He asked. Sakura was tied to the tree so tightly she couldn't even move to push the button on her earpiece. Sakura. Sakura closed her eyes in frustration as she struggled to get free. Sakura. Naruto yelled into her ear. Sakura's eyes shut tight as the ninja approached her with a look of pity. This is why you don't send a woman to do a man's job. Sakura. Sakura wanted to scream at Naruto and kill this sound ninja. Frustration ebbed through her. She couldn't do either. Damn, she muttered. She seriously hoped that Kenji and Kasumi remained out of his reach. Don't even begin to think I forgot about your little genin behind us. he chanted, realizing where her eyes had wandered. If you're a team leader, that must mean you're a Jonin, like I am. He said, but Sakura stood silent. If it ever got out that the Hidden Leaf Village had a Jonin shortage, then there could be serious chaos. Well, let's go, he said, but just as he reached for Sakura, she saw Kasumi do a hand sign. Shadow Possession Jutsu, she yelled, holding the elite ninja in her shadow. Sakura was released from the tree and she quickly called all of her chakra to the end of her fist. The reason they sent a woman to do a man's job is because she reared back and hit him so hard that she felt his neck crack and he was forced out of Kasumi's Shadow Possession Jutsu, where he was thrown into a tree. The tree collapsed. The Hidden Leaf Kunoichi are stronger than any man. Isn't that right, Kasumi? Kasumi smiled broadly. Yep. He died after that moment and Sakura let out a deep breath. The chakra strings had cut deep welts into her arms and body. Sakura. Naruto's voice yelled desperately on the radio. Her eyes thinned in frustration. I can hear you, Naruto. Are you okay? He asked. He sounded as if he'd been running. I'm fine, she lied. She looked down at her bloody arm and knew she'd need help. I was just tied up for a bit. We're heading back. Mika's been injured. We need you to look at him. He said. Okay, we're on our way. Sakura, who was overly exhausted, stumbled into the hotel room that night. Her chakra had long ago been drained from healing all of the genin. The Sound Ninja had led Lee and Shino's team and Kiba and Hinata's team into the village, knowing they were ninja. Their cover was now blown. Luckily, Sakura had paid off the hotel clerk to keep their location secret. She used up all of her chakra, which left none for her to heal herself. Her wounds hurt a lot. She leaned over and turned on the dim lamp on the nightstand. Sakura. She heard Naruto call softly from a dark corner. He came up to her and pulled her into a hug. She cried out in pain and pushed him away from her. Sakura? Naruto asked. He faced her into the light and gasped. She knew how bad she must have looked. She was covered in a layer of dust and blood. Her uniform had been torn to shreds. Sakura, he said, shock evident in his expression. What happened to you? She sighed heavily. She was still out of breath from healing the injured ninja. I just need a shower. She walked into the bathroom, leaving the door open, turned on the water to the shower and stepped in, still wearing her clothes. Wait a minute, Sakura. She turned to see Naruto standing in the doorway. You can't shower with your clothes on. I can't take them off, she said, looking at him helplessly. She was too tired to move, let alone remove her clothing. Come here, he said softly. She walked to where he was standing and held her arms loosely by her sides as he undressed her. When he pulled off her top, his eyes widened, huge bloody welt traced horizontally around the front of her body. She looked like she had been whipped. How did this happen? He asked, his eyes tracing the lines on her chest. There was no desire in his eyes as she stood before him. He seemed worried and angry. I resisted a Jonin's chakra strings. She explained and his eyes widened. Why didn't you heal yourself? He asked, realizing the cuts must be very painful. I used all of my chakra on Mika and the other genin since I'm the only medical ninja. Sakura, none of their injuries were as bad as yours. He yelled. She winced. I'm sorry for yelling, he said. She turned and walked into the glass-enclosed shower and stepped into the warm water. Pain rippled so sharply through her she gasped. It hurts, she whimpered. I can't even move. She didn't even resist when he undressed down to his lightning bolt boxers. Turn around. He ordered and she obeyed. He turned the water to a lukewarm temperature. Relief flowed through her as he began to massage the sore spots on her body. You need to stop always putting others before yourself, he said as he rubbed her forearm. He splashed soap onto a sponge and began to wash her scrapes and rinse the dust off of her body. She was so exhausted that she felt herself slowly falling. Whoa, stay awake, Sakura, Naruto said, supporting her whole body with only one arm. I'm trying, she muttered. He turned the water off and grabbed her hand, leading her out of the shower. I don't have another clean uniform. She told him. The other two are in cleaning right now. He grabbed his bag and pulled out a small container. Sit on the bed, he ordered, and she obeyed. He kneeled in front of her as she sat on the foot of the bed. He opened the container of gel medicine and smeared some on his fingertips. She shrugged away from him as he touched one of the welts on her stomach. It hurts. Trust me, Sakura, he said firmly, and she did. His fingers moved confidently over her body, soothing her wounds. This will help you sleep tonight, he told her as he continued to cover her with the gel. The intimacy lasted for what seemed like forever. Sakura just wished she wasn't so tired. Thank you, Naruto. Well, someone has to take care of you since you won't do it for yourself. He snapped angrily. Naruto. Was he mad at her? Look at you, Sakura. You're almost dead. She closed her eyes in frustration. I was fighting an elite Jonin ninja, she defended. He shook his head. Just take better care of yourself. She grabbed his arm softly and looked up and smiled. I will. She wanted Naruto to kiss her but didn't know how to act. She stared deeply into his eyes and leaned in for a, but as soon as she leaned, she tripped over into his lap. You're tired, he said, handing her his t-shirt and giving her a pair of his clean boxers to wear. After he helped her dress, he took a moment to appreciate her in his clothes. There was something so completely helpless about her at that moment. She was so sexy to him. He stood up and took a step back in order to collect his bearings. She softly slid under the covers and laid her head down on a pillow. She looked up at him and he felt his heart bang in his chest. Are you going to stay here tonight? She asked. It was obvious she was trying her best not to show it, but she needed him. He nodded and slipped in beside her. He wrapped her tightly in his arms. He didn't like her pushing herself, and especially not to this limit. Sakura felt so ashamed as he took her into his arms. Here she was again, relying on Naruto for everything. It was amazing to her that he cared about her so much. Naruto? Sakura asked, resting her head underneath his jaw. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're there for me, she said, sighing out of relaxation. Thank you. Naruto lovingly kissed her forehead. I've always been there for you, Sakura, I always will be. Sakura fell in love with Naruto at that moment. It hit her like a wall. She loved him. Sakura woke up later that night feeling sore but refreshed enough to use her chakra. She pulled off Naruto's shirt and concentrated her chakra to her palms. She began to heal her wounds. It took a few minutes of healing to heal her last wound, and then she pulled back on Naruto's shirt. You okay? Naruto asked, sitting up in bed. She nodded. I was just healing my scrapes. Let me see, he said, and she lifted her shirt up and showed him the pale pink marks that still ran across her body. It'll heal eventually, she told him as she traced one of them with her fingers. I know they're gross to look at. Nothing about you is gross to look at. She smiled and hugged him tightly, laying on top of him and looking into his eyes. Thanks for helping me, Naruto, she said, kissing him on the lips. Well, in that case, you are very welcome. Sakura felt relief flow through her as she snuggled into Naruto's chest. All of her senses were overwhelmed by him. She smelled his scent on the shirt she wore. She felt the strength of his arms as he held her securely in them. She tasted the sweet taste of him on her own lips. She could see his loving face staring back at her, and she could hear his soft, rhythmic breathing that relaxed her to the point that she allowed herself to form her only attachment to a boy since Sasuke Uchiha. Her feelings had never been this strong for her other teammate though. After a couple of minutes she felt herself dozing. She tightened her hand on Naruto's arm and fell asleep on his shoulder, peacefully drifting off to a dreaming state. Naruto woke up the next day feeling a weight on his shoulder. Sakura was snuggled deeply into his chest. Happiness flowed through him. He wondered if he'd ever been this happy. He was in love with Sakura. He had always been in love with Sakura. He wondered if she loved him. She had acted like it a lot. She definitely liked him. Naruto, he heard her mumble. He looked down and saw her still asleep in his arms. She murmured something he couldn't understand and then she said Sasuke's name. He felt his heart drop. Sakura would never feel about him the way she felt about Sasuke. He leaned back and tightened his hold on her. He loved Sasuke like a brother but definitely wanted Sakura for himself. She reached for him and him softly on the chin, still dreaming. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. His eyes widened and he looked down at her. What? He asked, but she snuggled deeper into his shoulder and he knew she must have been dreaming. Naruto bumped into Sakura's side and she jumped, waking up. Where am I? In the hotel room. Oh, do you know that you talk in your sleep? He asked. She blushed a bright red. You were watching me sleep. He nodded. You said something about loving me. Silence enveloped the room and the next thing Naruto saw was her fist heading straight towards him. That was private, she yelled, sending him to the other side of the room. Naruto, you little pervert, watching me while I sleep. He held his hands up in defense. I didn't mean to, it was an accident. She crossed her arms stand-officially. You were just waiting for me to say something like that. Did you mean it? What? I said, Naruto softly whispered, walking over to Sakura. Did you mean it? She fell silent and stared at the covers. I guess. You guess? Naruto asked, skeptically. She stared harder at the covers and fiddled with her hands. Geez, Naruto, she blushed. Just answer me, he snapped. Of course I do, she yelled, then fell quiet. Of course I love you, Naruto. She muttered, hiding her head in her hands. He looked up at her. She felt him remove her hands from her face. She looked deeply into his blue eyes, he kissed her softly. I love you too. She smiled up at him and kissed him again. Naruto. He pushed her softly into the soft pillow and continued to plant kisses all over her face and neck. The door opening brought them back to reality. Kiba and Hinata came in with Shino and Lee following. Sakura and Naruto froze in the awkward position they had been caught in. Naruto had put each of his legs on each side of her body and now lightly sat on her torso. Sakura's hands were twisted in his t-shirt. Is this a bad time, guys? Kiba asked. No. Yes. Sakura and Naruto exchanged glances. Yes. No. Kiba covered his mouth to keep from laughing. Sakura, did you lose your clothes? Lee asked, his bushy brows furrowing in confusion as he stared at Naruto's clothes on her body. They were torn, she said, looking down at the boxers that belonged to the boy on top of her. You tore up her clothes? Kiba asked, grinning. Damn Naruto, do you even know your own strength? Naruto grabbed Kiba by his shirt. Stop that, Kiba. I didn't rip her clothes, they were ripped up before. Kiba obviously enjoyed seeing his friends turn a bright red. Shut up, Kiba. Nothing happened. Sakura said, now covering her face in embarrassment. I dunno, Sakura, looks kind of obvious to me. Shino sighed and stepped forward. You know, Kiba, there isn't any law that states that Naruto and Sakura can't be in a relationship. Kiba closed his eyes smiling. Ah, I was just kidding around with them. So what do you guys want? Naruto asked as he climbed off of Sakura. Y'all were tired last night so we decided to save our big news until this morning. Kiba said. We found Orochimaru's hideout. Sakura and Naruto sat straight up. You what? Naruto asked. We found it. Lee exclaimed, pushing his chest out proudly. Sakura and Naruto jumped out of bed. Let's go, Sakura said, reaching for the door. Sakura, Shino asked. You're still wearing Naruto's boxers. Kiba burst out laughing and Naruto covered his grin with his hand. Sakura blushed. Well then get out so I can change. They began to exit. Coming, Naruto? Kiba asked. Get out of here, Kiba. Sakura yelled, closing the door in his face. After quickly changing, Naruto followed Sakura out. But when the door swung open, Kiba and Lee collapsed at their feet. Sakura grabbed Kiba from the scruff of his neck. What exactly were you listening for? You pervert, Sakura yelled, hitting him across the room. Naruto was relieved that for once he wasn't the cause of her violent rage. Damn Naruto, how do you deal with her? Kiba asked, rubbing his now swollen cheek. What was that? Sakura asked, pounding her fist into her palm. Naruto chuckled. You're one crazy bitch, Sakura. Kiba muttered. Sakura released a frustrated shriek and jumped, but before she could, Naruto grabbed her from around her waist and lifted her off the ground as she tried to kick free. Breathe, Sakura, Naruto coaxed. I'll kill you, Kiba. She struggled for a few moments and Kiba moved to where he was just out of her reach. Come on, hit me, he chided, now grinning. Stop it, Kiba, you're only making it worse. Naruto yelled as he tightened his grip around Sakura's waist. She fought Naruto so roughly she didn't even stop until her elbow smashed into Naruto's nose. She stopped immediately when she heard the rough crunch of his nose breaking. Naruto fell back holding his nose. It didn't take long until red blood came streaming down his face and onto the floor, leaving a bloody puddle. Naruto, she yelled as he sat, his head crouched. Naruto, I'm so sorry. She came up to him, kneeling between his stretched out legs. Damn it, Sakura, Naruto muttered, sounding quite nasally. I'm sorry, she said, moving his hand away from his face. Don't move. His hands rested comfortably on her thighs as she carefully healed his broken nose. His eyes widened in pain as the bone healed. The blood disappeared too. Soon it was as if nothing had ever happened. She leaned down and gently, lovingly kissed the tip of his nose. It had been the first time she had kissed him in public. Despite the snickering from Kiba and the frustrated huffing from Lee, he smiled up at her just to see that she was crying softly. Sakura, Naruto grabbed her hand softly. I can't forgive myself for hurting you, I feel so bad. He smiled sweetly. You're so beautiful. She looked up at him in surprise. Oh Naruto, she said, falling into his arms, kissing him. The three Hidden Leaf teams approached Orochimaru's hideout cautiously. 9 young genin and their 6 team leaders paused in the shadows. I'm glad we waited until nightfall to do this. Kiba whispered to Naruto, who stood beside Sakura. Okay everyone, listen up, Shino told the genin. Stay behind your team leaders. Kenji crossed his arms, annoyed. I'm sick of always being in the shadows, I want some action. You don't get it, Naruto muttered, sternly. You're too young and inexperienced to understand. Sakura stared at Naruto. What are you talking about, sensei? Orochimaru isn't just a rogue ninja, he's one of the legendary Sannin. He's pure evil. If you don't stand behind your team leader, he'll sweep you aside as if you're dirt. But you did it, sensei. Kasumi spoke up. Naruto looked at her and all eyes were on him. The only reason I survived is because of this, he said, pulling his shirt off. After calling a shadow clone, he began to form a Rasengan. It's the 4th seal, Mika explained, recognizing it from the books they had read in the academy. A black spiral seal appeared over Naruto's abdomen. I survived because I have the Kyuubi sealed inside of me, he muttered, sadly. What about Sakura-sensei? Kasumi asked, almost at a whisper. I lived because whenever I had to cross paths with Orochimaru, Naruto was with me. Sakura answered, then turned to Kenji. It's not all about being the hero, Naruto and I are on a team, just like everyone else in this group is on a team. We will all survive this because we're sticking together. Sakura answered and Kenji nodded. Okay everyone, stay close and keep an eye open for enemies. Lee said. They entered Orochimaru's hideout. It was a dark, long cave. They walked slowly into the darkness with Hinata providing the only light by the torch that she carried. I hear water, Shino said. I do too, Sakura agreed. It sounds like rain. Everything is wet, Akamaru, and I can't smell anything. Kiba spoke up. Why don't you try, Hinata? Shino asked. She nodded and made a hand sign. Byakugan. After a moment of searching, Hinata shook her head. No, I can't sense anything too far ahead, there is too much iron in these cave walls. She squeaked. A huge explosion rocked the cave. The ground collapsed beneath them. Run! Sakura yelled as she pushed Kasumi to the edge where the ground became steady again. But the girl fell anyways. Sakura grabbed her just in time as she fell. Sakura used her chakra to push Kasumi towards the edge. Just as she did, Mika grabbed Kasumi by the wrist and pulled her over the edge. Everyone made it to the hard ground, everyone except for Sakura. She hung loosely from the edge. Her chakra was draining out of her at an extreme rate as she fought to stay on. I can't hold on anymore, she said as her chakra began to empty. She felt herself falling just as she lost consciousness. Sakura! Naruto yelled, making a hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto dived into the ravine, his clones holding onto his legs. He grabbed her just as she fell. Sensei! Kasumi called just as Naruto pulled Sakura over the edge. She was still out cold. It's all my fault. She died saving me. Kasumi cried. Oh, shut up, Kasumi. Sakura-sensei isn't dead, Kenji muttered, annoyed. Sakura! Naruto called, softly patting her cheek. She passed out, Shino said. Pushing Kasumi up by just using chakra must have used a lot of her energy. Wow, that was close. Naruto smiled, a worried teardrop falling on her cheek. Ah, isn't that touching? A voice called from the shadows. Kabuto appeared from the darkness. It seems as if your past teammates have developed a fondness for each other, Sasuke. Sasuke! Lee exclaimed as Sasuke appeared, looking unaffected. Sasuke snorted. Naruto's always loved Sakura. I suppose finally Sakura got over me. Naruto pulled Sakura to her feet and lifted her into his arms, protectively. All of the rest of the team leaders circled around him. Bravery, justice, chivalry. That must be my old comrades. Sasuke said, sarcastically. Sasuke! Naruto yelled. Sakura's head rested against his chest. You could have killed her. I see no use in Sakura, she's a useless burden, just look at her. He said, pointing at her. How many times would she have died if it wasn't for you saving her useless self, Naruto? Naruto's brows furrowed in anger. She's far from useless, Sasuke. Your little genin Kunoichi poses more of a threat than Sakura. He said, gesturing towards Kasumi. Naruto closed his eyes in livid anger. She doesn't deserve to be a ninja, she's just useless dead weight. Naruto felt the anger bubbling inside of him. He growled and huffed as the Kyuubi took over him. Naruto, Sakura called softly, gripping his shirt. They're just words. You're not dead weight, Sakura. He growled, his eyes red, matching the Kyuubi's. She slowly reached up and cupped his cheek. Stop. I won't let the demon take over you, she said, leaning up and kissing his cheek where the lines on his face had darkened. After a moment, his eyes returned to their calm blue state. Sakura, he said, calmly. She nodded and did a hand sign to heal her wounds, but she couldn't even muster a bit of medical ninjutsu. My chakra is completely drained. Sakura whispered. Rest then, I'll protect you. He promised. She couldn't help but fall asleep against his chest. She believed him. She trusted him with her safety. Sasuke chuckled maniacally. Useless. Leave her alone, Lee said. Or I will have to kill you. Kabuto smiled. Taijutsu doesn't work on Sasuke. Lee didn't care about Kabuto's words and attacked Sasuke with full force. A light flashed through the cave and Lee was knocked backwards. Bushy brows. Naruto yelled. Akamaru caught him just before he hit the cave wall. Good job, boy, Kiba and Hinata said in unison. Naruto carried Sakura over to Lee. I trust you, please take care of her. Lee nodded. I will protect her, he said, then paused. With my life. Naruto glared at Sasuke with hate in his eyes, the red Kyuubi's eyes returned. He was growling angrily. What about Sakura? She wouldn't want you to use the Kyuubi. Shino said. What Sakura doesn't understand is that I can control the Kyuubi up to the fourth tail. Naruto said, beating his fist into his palm. Shino crossed his arms. But if you lost control of the Kyuubi, there will be no way any of us can suppress it. Don't worry, Shino. We're with you, man. Kiba called. Shino nodded. I'm with you too, Naruto. Hinata squealed. Naruto nodded, a grin lit up on his face. Watch out, Kabuto. If you stand between me bringing back Sasuke, we will take you down. Kabuto chuckled. Big words for such a little kid. Naruto snorted. I'm far from a kid, 4 eyes. He said, performing a hand sign, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 20 shadow clones appeared. Akamaru and I are right behind you. Kiba yelled. Naruto nodded. Suddenly 10 Rasengans appeared in 10 of the shadow clones. Watch this. Naruto yelled. The clones headed straight for Kabuto. All of a sudden Kabuto made his move, deflecting each attack. The leftover shadow clones jumped up and attempted to land a hit. They got underneath Kabuto and sent him into the air. Shock registered on Kabuto's expression. Uzumaki barrage. Naruto yelled as he jumped up and kicked Kabuto to the dirt, making the cave floor break up into pieces. Naruto landed right in front of Sasuke. You're coming back with me, Sasuke. He yelled, grabbing Sasuke's collar. The eyes of the Sharingan meeting his eyes of the Kyuubi. Red met red, one calm the other desperate. Forget it, Naruto. But, Sakura's a contributing factor to why I'm not going back. She's not the main reason, but she's definitely part of it. Sasuke spat. But why? Naruto asked. She's like weights around my ankles as I'm drowning. She holds me back, just like she'll hold you back. You're wrong about Sakura, she's a medical ninja. She healed Kankuro once from Sasori's poison. She even killed Sasori. He was a member of the Akatsuki, he killed the Kasekage. Sasuke didn't offer a retort. Let's go. Naruto yelled, dragging him. I'm not going anywhere. He yelled. Yes you are. Take your hands off my pupil, Jinchuriki, a voice called from the shadows. Naruto flinched at being called that horrible name. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto stuttered, apologetically. The nine-tailed fox, he was too powerful. Kabuto, you don't have to defend yourself. Orochimaru called as he stepped into the light. Naruto's second tail appeared. Kenji, Kasumi, and Mika stood frozen in their place along with the other genin. Before them stood their 6 team leaders. 2 were already down for the count, and now they were in the presence of one of the legendary Sannin. All the genin felt as if they were in over their heads. Naruto, calm down, you won't be able to control yourself if you don't watch out. Kiba yelled, standing beside him, boxing in Sasuke. Well, the gang's all here. Sasuke hissed. We all care about you, Sasuke, stop this now. Kiba growled. You care about me? He asked, chuckling sarcastically. That's sweet, guys. Shut up. Hinata screamed. Don't you get it? They're not going to help you get revenge on your brother. They'll only kill you. Kiba and Naruto whirled around. Hinata had turned red from a mix of anger and embarrassment. Hinata, Kiba muttered, worried. You're more useless than Sakura, all you do is hide in the shadows. At least Sakura fights. You pathetic loss. Kiba punched Sasuke so hard he was sent backwards. You leave her alone. Sasuke stood and laughed maniacally as he wiped the blood off of his lips. She isn't even worth killing. I'm done with this, Orochimaru called, sounding quite bored with the whole ordeal. In one swipe Kiba and Naruto were knocked backwards. Hinata had dodged it easily using her Byakugan. Protection of the 8 trigrams. 64 palms. Hinata squeaked out, attacking Orochimaru full force. She landed a few good blows, he was knocked backwards. Lord Orochimaru, Kabuto yelled as he attempted to grab Hinata, but instead her palm struck him at a vital chakra point. Hinata, Kiba and Naruto yelled in unison. Help her, Akamaru. Kiba ordered as Akamaru ran for her. Naruto bit his thumb. Summoning jutsu. A couple of medium-sized frogs appeared. Go. Naruto yelled. Shino sent out a huge swarm of bugs in Kabuto's direction. Orochimaru and Kabuto had their hands full with their summoned creatures. Sasuke blinked out of sight and appeared beside Sakura and Lee. One powerful swing and Lee had been knocked backwards. Sakura. Naruto yelled, running in her direction. But it was too late. In 1 second he had pulled out his sword. Sasuke. Don't. Naruto yelled. In the next moment Sasuke shoved the knife downwards, aiming for Sakura's heart. Sasuke. The knife pierced her skin, blood gushed out from where it had broken the skin, but just as it cut her, she grabbed the knife with her gloved hands. The blade immediately ripped through her gloves, blood now poured down her arm. Whose useless dead weight? Sakura asked, throwing him backwards. Within the next second, Sakura had stood up and punched him in the stomach so hard everyone in the room could hear his ribs break. He flew against the wall and knocked into the cliff. Sakura panted, out of breath. Sakura! Naruto yelled, running for her. She held her hand over her wound, beginning to heal it. My chakra, she forced out, falling to her knees. Sakura! Naruto caught her. I'm trying. Suddenly Naruto closed his eyes and focused his chakra to his hands, which touched her healing arm. So much power flowed through Sakura. Her whole body was surrounded by Naruto's chakra. You don't have to be alone anymore, he said as his chakra enveloped her. She healed the wound on her chest as best as she could, but even with Naruto's chakra, she found her own chakra weakening. I'm so tired, she said as the silhouette slowly dissipated. Sakura, your hand, Naruto said, gesturing to her bleeding hand. She looked up at him with the last of her strength. I'm sorry. He caught her just as she fell forwards. Naruto, we need to get out of here, Kiba said, holding the badly injured Hinata in his arms. Our medical ninja and our scout are both badly injured. Ninja law states that we need to pull back. Naruto nodded, picking up Sakura. I've got you, he told her sleeping form. Shino and Lee held off Kabuto, but Orochimaru and Sasuke didn't react as they headed for the exit. Kiba, Hinata squeaked, as she clung to him. Her leg had been impaled by Orochimaru's sword. Hold tight, he said, as he continued to run. Sakura's eyes opened slowly, she felt exhausted. The bright lights and white walls hurt her eyes. Where was she? She slowly remembered what had happened. Naruto had saved her, he had defended her honor. Sadness filled her as she thought of Sasuke. He had tried to kill her, he had almost succeeded. Naruto, she looked beside her and smiled, he was right where she knew he'd be, by her side. He was asleep. She peacefully ran her fingers through his blonde hair, he of course had healed himself with the Kyuubi's chakra. She fell against the pillow, still exhausted. Sakura, I'll always take care of you, he murmured. She smiled warmly. I know you will, I love you, Naruto. He opened his eyes and they locked eyes. How long have I been asleep? She asked. 3 days. I'm sorry I couldn't help you. You did a great job, Sakura. Next time I'll protect you better, he promised. She frowned and cupped her hand over his cheek. You protect me just fine, she said. Look at you, it's going to take you weeks to fully recover, he said, gesturing to the bandages covering her body. I don't want you to die protecting me, she whispered. But you're a medical ninja, and according to ninja law, the medical ninja must be protected at all costs, Naruto argued. That's not why you take all these risks, Naruto. So? He asked, staring at their intertwined hands. So, I love you. I don't want you to give your life to save mine. He closed his eyes and ran his hand through his hair. I can't stop protecting you. I'm a man, it happens without me being able to control it. She shook her head. Don't play that card, Naruto. What card? The whole, I'm a man, it's my duty to protect my woman, card. Naruto knew that they had reached a stalemate. He looked out of the window and sighed, he was about to make one last attempt. Yeah, well, but Sakura was asleep. The argument had obviously been too exhausting for Sakura. She slept in his arms as he laid beside her in the hospital bed, spoon form. His arms enveloped her. Her body was so tiny and weak inside his strong arms. He felt like he was holding a delicate china doll in his arms. Kiba knocked on the door before entering. Hey man, sorry to bother you. You're fine, how's Hinata? Naruto asked. She's good, she got up for a while, we went for a walk in the hospital garden, Kiba said. You really care about her, don't you? Naruto asked and Kiba nodded. Yeah, she's certainly a lot to handle. Seems to me you have your hands full with Sakura too. Yeah, she won't be walking for a few more days, she'll still have to take it easy after that. Kiba nodded and a silence fell around them. Well, I guess I'm going to take Hinata out for some fresh air, wanna come? Naruto shook his head. I think I'll make sure doesn't push herself too much. Kiba nodded. You and Sakura, you're going to last, man. Naruto smiled warmly and sincerely. I sure hope so. Kiba and Naruto exchanged a friendly handshake. Kiba left. Naruto snacked on Sakura's egg rolls as she slowly slurped on a bowl of ramen. Make sure you eat it all. Naruto told her. This isn't that great though, Naruto. Sakura said, cringing. It's almost as bad as mine. He chuckled and kissed forehead. If you eat it all, I'll take you out to Ichiraku ramen when you get better. Like a date? Sakura asked, raising an eyebrow. Yep. She shrugged and took another bite, making a face as she swallowed. He laughed. Suddenly the door burst open and a woman came storming inside. She looked worried and very concerned. Mom. Sakura's eyes widened. Naruto immediately sat up a bit straighter. She stuttered, staring at Naruto in surprise. Sakura, I came here as soon as Shizune told me that you had been hospitalized. Yeah, I've been in the hospital for a few days. Sakura commented. Let me speak to Sakura in person. Her mom snapped towards Naruto. Mom. No, that's okay, Naruto said, standing and walking out. Why were you so rude to him? Sakura asked her mom, her eyes furrowed in disbelief. He's the nine-tailed fox, Sakura. You're not supposed to be polite to him. Her mom answered, her nose crinkled in disgust. Sakura felt adrenaline pump through her system. What? Why is that boy here, Sakura? And why was he on your bed? He's taking care of me. Sakura yelled suddenly, slamming her fists on the food tray. Food flew everywhere. It's not his job to care for you, he's not your boyfriend. Her mother sneered. Actually, he is. Sakura yelled. Her heart was pumping, she was too sick to control the anger bubbling inside of her. She felt as if she was about to burst. I love him, Mom. You can't be serious. Sakura grabbed her mother by her collar and brought her up so that they were face to face. Do I look like I'm joking? Sakura's mom pulled away and walked to the window. After collecting her bearings, she looked at Sakura. This is going to kill your father. He was set on having Sasuke in the family. We want our grandchild to inherit a Kekkei Genkai. A grandchild with the Sharingan, what more could a family want? She said, waving her arms around in the air. What would that thing's genes offer? A long line of lazy troublemakers. Sakura felt her muscles convulse. She had never been so angry. Naruto is a better man than you give him credit for. She hissed. I'm sorry, Sakura, but I'm going to have to put my foot down about this. I will not allow you to be with him. As long as you live in my house, you will not see him. Don't you get it, Mom? I love him, she said, as tears burst out of Sakura's eyes. I love him more than I'll ever love Sasuke. Her mom reared back and slapped Sakura hard. This is more than just your feelings. He will shame our family. I think you're doing a good enough job of shaming the family by yourself, Sakura muttered, wiping the blood from her lip. As long as you're seeing that boy, you are not allowed home. Sakura's eyes widened. I'm sorry, Sakura, her mother said, sadly. But it's for your own good. She began to walk out. No, stop, Sakura said, standing up. She quickly ripped the IV out of her palm, tearing the skin, and hobbled over to the door. Sakura. Naruto gasped as he saw her fighting to stay upright. She fell to the hard, cold floor in a heap. She beat the floor in frustration. The ground crumbled into shards and sliced her hands open. Shit, shit, shit. She yelled as the force embedded the tiny pieces of the floor into her palm. Stop it, Sakura, Naruto yelled, grabbing her wrist. A moment of complete silence passed. Blood poured from Sakura's hand down Naruto's arm. She looked up at him, tears pouring down her eyes. Sakura. She held her arms out helplessly and he didn't hesitate in taking her in them. They sat there, on the floor, with Sakura in Naruto's lap. She was sobbing into his shoulder, her arms wrapped tightly around his neck. Sakura, I'm so sorry. She said that. I can't believe she said that. Sakura sobbed uncontrollably into his neck. I heard what she said. Sakura looked up in surprise. Naruto, don't go, don't leave me please. She said, clinging to his neck as if her life depended on it. Naruto's eyes widened. Never in his life had he ever met someone who needed him as much as she did right then. Desperation made her look so helpless. He almost pitied her, but the love that he felt for her outshined the pity. He leaned down and lifted her chin softly. It would take more than that to make me leave you. She hiccuped. How do you deal with that, Naruto, always being hated? He took a moment before answering. I remember my friends and I remember you and it makes everything alright. He said, kissing her softly. I love you, Naruto, she said, kissing him in return. I want to tell you something, but I'm afraid you'll laugh. He looked deeply into her eyes. I promise I won't laugh. She hesitated for a moment and leaned forward to whisper into his ear. I want you to be my first. Naruto's eyes widened in shock. He stared deep into her eyes, like it took him a few moments to fully comprehend what she had told him. Sakura, Naruto muttered after a moment of silence. She blushed and stared at her hands. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything, just forg. Naruto her warmly. I want you to be my first too. Sakura smiled warmly. Really? He nodded. But let's not talk about that until you're better. She sighed. I feel better already since I'm with you. She said, relaxing in his embrace. She looked down at her shredded palms. Look what I did to my hands. He began to brush the shards out of her cuts, some of them were embedded deeply into her hands. Heal yourself, I'll help you. He said, softly. She sent her healing chakra to her sliced hands. After a few moments her chakra visibly weakened and her breathing became heavy. He covered her hand with his own, combining their chakra. Don't use your chakra, take mine. He told her and she obeyed, directing his chakra over her hand. She felt the warmth of his own chakra flowing through her body. Her hand slowly healed itself until it finally had healed completely, leaving only tiny scratches. Better? He asked. She nodded, laying on his shoulder, exhausted. He carried her back to the hospital bed and laid her softly in the middle of the bed and tucked her in. Stay with me, she said, grasping his hand weakly. Please, I don't want to be alone. He once again climbed into the tiny hospital bed with her. He took her into his arms and held her tight. He closed his eyes and let her fall asleep like that, cuddled in his arms. He realized in that moment, at that very second, as she sat there helplessly in his embrace that he wanted her forever, he wanted her to be his eternally, he wanted her to be his wife. Sakura walked hand in hand with Naruto through the hospital's garden. It had been a week since they had closed the mission as a failure. The rest of the group had been returned to active duty except for Naruto and Sakura. All of the genin had been sent to the hidden sand village to serve as reinforcements as security. The Chunin in turn had been placed on guard duty in Konoha while Jonin were sent out on missions. Sakura stopped at a bridge overlooking the Konoha River. I feel a lot better, Naruto. I think I'll be able to leave tonight. She said, brightly. He looked at her skeptically. Not back to active duty. Why not? I feel great. Sakura, Naruto muttered. You had to fight off a fever last night. She shrugged. I know, but I'm okay now, right? Naruto rested her forehead against hers. Who's gonna take care of you if you collapse while on guard duty? She crossed her arms, stand officially. Who says I'm going to collapse? Naruto raised an eyebrow skeptically. I'm a medical ninja, Naruto, and I know my limits. I also know I'm well enough to get back to work. Naruto sighed and nodded slowly. Besides, Sakura argued, you'll be with me. Naruto, her impulsively. Things had become so normal between them, so relaxed. It seemed so right. Sakura smiled warmly. I love you. He returned her smile with his own. I love you too. You two just about make me sick. Konohamaru called from the bushes. Why, you little peeping Tom? Sakura yelled, punching him in the face. No. Stop. Konohamaru squealed as a lump on his face began to form. Naruto grabbed Konohamaru by the collar and lifted him off the ground. What do you want, Konohamaru? Nothing, boss. I just thought I'd see what you and your girlfriend was doing. Sakura shook her head and crossed her arms. Boys. Konohamaru looked confusingly over at Sakura. Hey, she didn't get pissed when I made that crack about her being your girlfriend. That's because she is my girlfriend. Naruto muttered. Konohamaru covered his head with his arms, shielding himself. Oh damn boss, you really said it now. She's gonna pulverize you. The punch never came. What's going on? Konohamaru looked lost as he looked between Naruto and Sakura. Listen you brat, I am his girlfriend. Sakura admitted, arms still crossed, obviously irritated. For real? He asked, his eyes widening. Yep, Naruto answered, with a proud catch in his throat. I finally convinced her. Konohamaru stared at Sakura, mouth agape. What are you staring at, twerp? She snapped. I just kind of thought you were more in a league with Choji. Sakura's mouth widened, flashing Konohamaru a livid expression. I'll kill you, you little brat. She yelled, running towards him. Oh shit Konohamaru, you'd better run. Naruto yelled, fear evident on his face. He knew the power of Sakura's punches oh so well. Konohamaru set off in a blaze. Naruto caught Sakura just as she passed by him. Settle down, Naruto said, his grip tightening. Damn that little squirt. Sakura spat, crossing her arms angrily. He was only kidding around. Naruto said. She paused after a few moments and then muttered something mean about Konohamaru and held her side. See, you've already hurt yourself. Naruto said, carefully pushing away her hospital gown to see her stitches bleeding from where they had sewed the knife wound shut. She shook her head and began to heal it by herself. You're not talking me out of this. The alarm next to the bed woke Sakura up. She rolled over and turned it off. She climbed over the bump next to her and opened the curtains. A grunt came from the bump. She giggled. Wake up, sleepyhead. She sat on his abdomen, her legs tucked beneath her on each side of him. Sakura. She giggled and planted, all over his face. I'm going to tie you to this bed and tape your mouth shut if you don't let me go back to sleep. Naruto grunted. She sat up. Well, look who's grumpy today. She said a bit louder than necessary. Damn it, Sakura. Naruto yelled, flipping her beneath him, pinning her down and covering her mouth with his hand. She tried to say something but it was muffled by his hand. After a moment of watching her struggle to talk he finally busted out laughing. You're mean when you first get up. She said, joining in with his laughter. You jumped on top of me. He argued. Sakura made a face and pushed him off of her. She stood up and looked around Naruto's apartment for the door leading to the bathroom. Oh no you don't, Naruto said, running over to her and grabbing her just as she reached for the knob. I'm not done with you yet. Sakura looked up at him with her sweet, big, emerald eyes. I have to take a shower before we leave for the north gate to keep guard. Naruto dissolved under her innocent stare. I'll let you take the first shower, if you let me sleep while you're taking a shower. She smiled. Deal. Sakura turned the water off and threw a towel around her body as she walked out of Naruto's bathroom and into the apartment. Naruto was fast asleep on the bed, his body stretched out to both of the sides. His eyes were closed. He looked very peaceful. Naruto. She called and smiled as he opened his eyes. The blue in his eyes seemed to glitter as he searched her body, which was still covered by the towel. Desire bubbled inside of him. Sakura, Naruto said, reaching out to touch her bare shoulder. Never in his life had he known such softness could exist. Sakura leaned in and, Naruto. He felt his heart race. It took every ounce of his being not to undress Sakura. All she had on was a towel, one flick of his wrist and she could be before him. I want you, Naruto muttered, not knowing whether he had said it out loud or just in his mind. Sakura Naruto again and put his hand on her chest. If you want me, then take me. She said, and in one swift movement the towel fell to the floor, leaving Sakura completely before him. Sakura, Naruto stuttered as he took her beauty in. He closed his eyes tightly. This is your last chance, if you leave now, then I can stop. But she moved closer and pulled his shirt over his head. I want you to. We're going to be late for work. Naruto muttered. That's okay, I'll just say I wasn't feeling my best and you helped me. She said, as she desperately reached for the zipper of his pants. His breathing became heavy. Sakura. He pushed her against the wall of his apartment and lifted her up, and touching her. She shivered as she felt his fingertips run down the length of her torso. You're so soft, Naruto said. Sakura smiled as he lifted her up and placed her softly in the middle of the bed. Last warning, Sakura, you can still get out of this, Naruto said, even though he knew he was too far gone. I don't want to get out of this, Sakura said. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki, and I want you to be the first man I ever do this with, and I want you to be the last. Sakura smiled. She was cuddled deeply inside Naruto's embrace. They were both still and breathing heavily. You okay? Naruto asked. Her forehead. Did I hurt you? Sakura shook her head. I just want to sleep like this. Naruto smiled. Then sleep. I think a nap sounds good. Sakura cuddled into Naruto's chest and Naruto leaned back. He thought of all that had happened in the last 4 hours. Neither one of them were virgins. Naruto knew that even though it was a big deal to him, it was an even bigger deal for her. He smiled widely and took a deep breath. The last time he was this happy was before Sasuke left. He felt her. The spot right above his ribcage. Sakura's eyes closed peacefully and eventually she dozed off. He stayed up and laid beside her for what seemed like hours, just thinking. His mind wandered to their future, and the future of Konoha. It lingered on Sasuke's for a while. How he missed his best friend. Determination filled him to find him. Naruto carefully got out of bed and pulled on his pants. He walked out onto the balcony and looked out around the village. People went from place to place. Some went towards the center of town to go grocery shopping for that night's meal, others headed towards their friends' houses for a night of games and fellowship. He turned around and watched Sakura as she slept peacefully in his bed. He felt a sudden urge to protect everything around him. The villagers, his friends, and Sakura, they were all precious to him. He turned back around and looked out to the 5 Hokages carved in the mountain top overlooking the village. He yearned to be Hokage, so much it hurt. His hand that rested by his side made a fist. Naruto? Sakura asked, and he turned. She stood in the doorway, a worried expression evident on her face. She had his sheet wrapped around her body. Did I wake you up? He asked as she walked out onto the balcony with him. I noticed you weren't beside me anymore, she said, resting her hands on his sides and placing her head against his back. Are you all right? He smiled warmly and looked down. I was just watching all of the villagers down below, and I was thinking of how beautiful this village is, and why anybody would want